did you? I'll get it later when I get home. Call this meeting to order. Council work session, Wednesday, December 20th. Time is 1:01. Open for visitor comments.
Good afternoon, friends and countrymen and women. I noticed today on...
Agnes, can you maybe have a seat?
You want me to
Yeah, so you can speak into the mic so it picks you up better.
Do you want me to start over?
Yes.
Good afternoon, friends
Good afternoon.
and countrymen and women. I'm here today because I saw on your agenda something again about the municipal court. And I don't know, it says that you're just going to be discussing the contract with the prosecutor and the judge. And if there's any inclination at all to go back where you were several months ago of thinking about eliminating those positions and eliminating the court, then I want to talk about your policy. And maybe I'm jumping the gun, but you had many people from the community come here and express dismay, or even stronger, about a possibility of eliminating that court. Now, in the law, there's a very strong attitude called due process, which is you do not take actions like that without at least notifying the people who are interested. You had people from Top Notch, you had people from various other businesses, you had people from the court over across the way, and I think as a matter of due process, if people are that interested to come to your hearings over things, they should get a notice if you're going to go back into that mode. Hopefully you're not going into that mode, so my comments may be off the wall or something, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Secondly, I want to tell you that I care enough about this. Let's start with me and the court. I have no dog in the fight. I don't have any cases there. I had one case that I resigned from where you had just hired a new prosecutor. So I saw him in action, and I can tell you I thought he was doing an extremely good job. The judge was doing a good job, and it's my understanding that that court is now in the black. If I'm mistaken about that, you can correct me. So my own circumstances are I have not been to town except weekly for short times for a break since August 21, 2017. So I have made a real commitment today in order to be here and share my views with you. And that's what I want to say about that. And I beg you, please do not do anything so I don't want to use the term ignorant, but non-thinking as to eliminate a court that has served you well ever since the city has been going. And thank you very much for your attention. And I'm going to stay to see what it is you're up to because I did not have time to print a copy of what's in your packet. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. And it looks to me like my university is 2 out of 5 of taking over this council. I really like that t-shirt, by the way. That's super nice. Excuse me, I guess you're not supposed to comment about clothing of any sex or the opposite sex, but I like that t-shirt.
Thank you, Agnes. Okay.
This might be a good opportunity to introduce our city attorneys happen to drop in today, and I don't think many of the councils have met them or maybe talked on the phone. Or Peter Watts and Angela Johnson from Jordan Ramus just happen to be in town today. And
well, there's no better time to meet the city attorney when the city attorney's off the clock delivering cookies, and so it's wonderful to meet all of you. I'm Peter Watts, and Angela and I have worked together for about 12 and a half years.
Nice.
I do municipal law and land use law, and at this moment, because Shelby Rahala, who was in our office, has gone in-house for the city of Tigard, I represent 6 cities in 5 different counties. So it's so interesting, and I should say thank you for your public service. I staff enough meetings that I know how much time all of you spend, and that commitment of time and dedication to your community, I think, is just so commendable.
Thank you.
And if I can answer any questions, or you need any information from me on anything on your agenda, which I'm not prepared to do, well, I can certainly discuss. Though I didn't prepare anything in the office, I'd be happy to do that.
I don't think so. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I hope you enjoy the cookies.
Yep.
And we have had some. I noticed that it's on the agenda, and also there was a public comment. We have had, Angela and I both have had some experience with municipal court issues, as well as the transitioning from municipality to a county. In that instance, it was the city of Damascus, which was our client, and now is perhaps not a city. And the case is still at the Court of Appeals, but Circuit Court says they're not a city anymore. So it was in that context, but I think we learned some. That was 3 or 4 years ago, but we learned a few lessons from that.
So can you talk about those?
Sure, I can, and I guess because I don't know you, I should start with some baseline things, which is that, you know, my view of the city attorney's role is to advise all of you on legal risk, and call balls and strikes. So I don't advise on policy. I think that the vision and values for every city are different, and so the right decision for you is not necessarily going to be the same as the city of Dundee or Scappoose or Gerhardt or anywhere else. So I'll put up those parameters to begin with. And some of the things that I noticed when we transitioned Damascus from and please, Angela's really the brains of the operation, but I'm the one that talks all the time. In the case of Damascus, what we had was a lot of unpredictability as far as the amount of fines that were coming in, as well as the court costs that were happening. So there wasn't a whole lot of a consistency on a month-to-month basis. It was also unique in that while they technically had a police force, I mean, if you saw their cars, they said City of Damascus on them. They were sheriff's deputies that were contracted through the county. And so it was, and that's the same as the city of Happy Valley, which is their neighbor. So it was a little bit different there. They looked at, and this was shortly before their disincorporation. And so you probably saw in the media, there was a lot of turbulence in that city. And I got to be in the paper a whole lot more than I would ever wish upon anyone. But the city staff didn't have a lot of capacity to deal with the issues. And as they looked at the return on investment, so the cost versus what they were bringing in, it just wasn't penciling. And so I think part of it was cost, and part of it was just they did want people to have the best possible service, and they were having trouble with that. And so I think that there are a couple of elements that I would suggest you look at and ask the question, and then the answer, you know, you'll come up with an answer, and hopefully that's the right answer. But what I have noticed as someone who's been in cases in municipal court, circuit court, court of appeals, LUBA, is that the experience in a municipal court is very different than the experience that you get in a circuit court. You're not walking through metal detectors necessarily. You're sitting in a room like this versus in a courthouse. That's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is what sort of infractions there are and how they're being dealt with. And so if as I've looked at, and I represent cities that have municipal courts, and we represent cities that don't. But oftentimes, if you talk to a prosecutor, particularly at this point where folks don't have a lot of resources, what you'll find if they're in a space where they can have this conversation with you, because and I clerked for the Douglas County DA's office and the U.S. Attorney's office when I was in law school, but traffic fines are likely things that they can move forward with because there is a fine element. They don't need a prosecutor because the police officer is essentially prosecuting, and they can usually get return on the investment that's decent. If you have nuisance claims, and I don't know what percentage of those you have, but oftentimes if a prosecutor has to make a tough decision between prosecuting felonies, misdemeanors, or nuisance complaints, the nuisance complaints just fall off because they require a prosecutor. They can be time intensive, particularly if someone understands the discovery process and is organized. And so in those instances where a prosecutor is having to do a cost benefit analysis and kind of protect the public good, I've seen those sort of things fall off. And so if you're in a situation where it's a lot of traffic tickets, the experience that the person goes through will change because obviously they're over there instead of here. But the prosecution won't change. The nuisance things, I suspect might. So what I would suggest is that, offline or whatever, you talk to the prosecutor and see how much capacity they have on their staff, and if they have the capacity to take them on. Because I think that cities that are highly functioning and cities that aren't functioning as well, a common theme is that people get really upset if their neighbors are a nuisance neighbor and that there's nothing that happens. And so that's kind of when we see people at their angriest. That and vacation rentals also lately has been oddly has been something that's gotten some people pretty upset. I would look at those things and you probably have a couple of data points you're looking at as far as costs and things of that nature. I like to look at trends, and I kind of like to look at the sort of cases that are being brought in capacity. And I really can't speak to any of those things, but I think certainly your city administrator can. The prosecutor, and having worked in a prosecutor's office, a prosecutor does not like to publicly say, I'm not going to prosecute something, because their job is to prosecute. But if we're being honest, we know that they have limited resources. And so it's just being able to have kind of a candid conversation and getting a better idea. If you decide to go in there, go over there, and the prosecutor has limited capacity, then I think it's really important that you prioritize what they would as far as non-traffic citations, because traffic citations usually pencil financially unless the defendants get lawyers, and sometimes it's more expensive. But as far as if they don't have a lot of capacity over there and there's one specific like nuisance category that's really important to you, I just think open communication on the front end and telling them, look, you might see a lot of citations. This is our priority one. This is.
Yep.
Yeah. So I probably talked.
Well, no, you explained it very thorough. We've been through this process. That's what we just did, what Agnes was speaking of. And we had our county over here, DA, and the whole work. So you explained it thoroughly.
I have a question.
Sure.
Since you've had experience in both municipal court and district court, you stated that it's a different experience. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and I should say that my experience in municipal court is usually as a prosecutor, and that my experience in circuit court isn't prosecuting tickets of that nature, though I have received one or two traffic tickets myself over the years, and in one instance I felt an error had been made and went to court. It's just if you're walking through a metal detector, if you're in front of someone that is usually dealing with felonies and misdemeanors, it's a lot more intimidating for people. And I think particularly for non-lawyers that aren't used to being in court, there's a just difference in walking into something like this and walking in front of a judge in a black robe who's sitting in a high bench and high ceilings and a jury box and everything else. It's far more intimidating for people. And so that's the difference that I've noticed. The biggest difference, and if I were a policymaker, I think what I'd be taking the hardest look at is, besides, well, finances are very important. You know, every city, they're very important, every city, but is the amount of capacity that the prosecutor has. That is what I would say, and then just open and clear communication with the folks that live here, because they're the ones that are going to be most impacted, making sure that they understand, to the extent that a change is going to occur, both why it's occurring and why that's in the best interest of the city.
Anybody else? Welcome, Peter, Angela. You didn't get to say much, but
He likes to talk.
She knows when to kick me underneath the table. She knows when to kick me underneath the table. So.
we appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
And hope you enjoy the cookies. And
Yes.
may see you again.
Oh, the one question I was going to ask prior to that, what cities and counties do you guys represent?
All right, so we represent here and Scappoose, Estacada in Clackamas County, and these are the cities where I'm the primary attorney for. Gerhard on the coast, Dundee in Yamhill County, King City in Washington County. Then I was in Westland last night, staffing their historic advisory board.
Nice.
I was in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, staffing them. I was deputized as a special prosecutor in Clark County for a narrow elections issue, where everyone in the county counsel's office is conflicted out, and so they didn't give me a badge. I kind of wanted one, but I got to deal with that. It was a challenge to a candidate's candidacy, whether he lived at the address that he claimed to. So that was interesting. And then,
Done some land use work for Clatsop County.
Nice. All right.
great. Well, it's nice to meet all of you, and good luck with everything.
Yep.
Thank you. And thanks for the cookies.
Yes. Okay, any other visitor comments?
Tina Curry, Consulting. And I just wanted to give a quick recap of the Christmas ship lighting that happened, and also the Santa in the plaza. And we got really great positive feedback this year with everything that's going on as far as the new decor in the plaza. And we served just about 400 cups of cocoa. And I made a donation to the Humane Society so that they would raise a little bit of money to do that. And I think that everything went really smoothly. There seemed to be a lot of people here for the Christmas ships, and a lot of people loved the fire and the music. And even though it was cold, people braved the weather and came out, and it was really a success, I would say. So I just wanted to thank everybody for this opportunity, and look forward to 2018 and another successful year.
Do we have any count on how many kids Santa and Mrs. Claus saw?
Well, because Santa had the candy canes,
Oh, so I have to ask Santa.
Santa is the key.
Okay.
Seemed that the line went pretty late into the night, though.
Yeah.
Almost till like 8:30. That's pretty.
Yes, I had to help with Mrs. Claus's heater came unplugged, and I had to help out with Mrs. Claus's heater.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're working on the contract with the museum and the building there, as well. I've met with a credit union on the sign that's going to go on the gazebo, and they have approved that. So we're just moving along.
Good job. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other visitor comments?
I'll stand over here. Last time I gave a presentation, which the council showed really no interest in creating jobs or education. And there are two things about proposed fees. Recently, as of a week ago, Oregon came up again at the bottom end of new job creation and starting new businesses. We're 18th from the bottom. Main reason for this low rating was excessive fees and excessive things that are needed to be permitted. The commentary on lack of jobs and lack of vocational training has really been ramped up this last couple of months, you've probably noticed. But the fact that the excess fees, types of fees, is pushing Oregon way down, I would really trust that we back away from adding increases to the fees or even adding types of fees, because it is definitely a job killer and a business killer. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment, Steve. It's not that we are not receptive to that. We would like somebody professional here to propose something to us. You know, people say we're not business friendly. We don't let big industry in. That's a bunch of crap. Show me where they've come in and asked us. They haven't shown up. Bring them here. We'll listen to their proposal, and let's get going.
Well, back to the fees and some of the things. These were comments made by the architects about some of our codes and so on are very discouraging. And unless we make a step to get rid of some of those things or ask the people exactly what keeps them away, they're not going to come in, because we are very much anti-business, if you would. We can say a lot of things, but what's on the books and what we have to deal with very much hurts us, and everybody's looking for it.
What would really help is if you get more specific. You say some of those codes. Which codes?
The architect spoke about that.
Well, those are the ones that we need to address. So you're bringing it up, and you just say, we've got hundreds of codes. Mm-hmm. Which ones are you specifically asking us to look at?
Well, the other person who brought up our code problem was one of the developers from Hillsborough. You would have to go through the contractors and the businesses what hurts them. I'm just repeating that a number of these are hurting people. I am not giving you a specific group. I'm just reporting to you that a number of people in these different things. So I am being general.
Yes.
But as I say, we better find out. We have to go out and look and find out what's hurting us. They're not going to come and tell us, because that's not their business. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other visitor comments? Okay, discuss proposed land use fees. Jacob.
Thank you. So, I'm proposing to update the land use fee schedule. This was kind of the direction that Matt gave more than a year ago now. And over the last year, we kind of noticed some things that could be improved. We like to improve them as we see some issues. So this particular proposal, and this is a resolution for tonight, I wanted to have this opportunity to describe it to you so just you understand what's going on, basically. For the most part, there's a lot of increases which are just 2% based on the consumer price index nationally. I did hear Matt I overheard him telling someone that the Portland CPI is more like 4%, but we're basing it on the national. There are some exceptions to that in here, and they're kind of described in this memo. The two major ones I want to talk about are our site design review and conditional use permit fees. Right now, they cap out for projects $1 million and greater, so that's kind of the ceiling. And having some large multi-million-dollar projects come in. One of them was the middle school, so I don't feel so bad. Obviously, it's a noble project, but it's a pretty good deal for the big projects. And so we're accommodating those larger projects. And then another one is, this is kind of a legacy fee from the past before computers. In the fee schedule, there's always been a copy fee for the development code. And probably years ago, it was not as voluminous as it is now. So, and we've kind of increased that fee here and there, but it's currently $22, and it's a very rarely asked for product from the city. But based on the new photocopy fee, from the universal fee schedule, the actual cost to the city is $207.50. So a pretty huge difference, and it was something we go, oh yeah, we better fix that. So overall increases and some fixes, as I mentioned in there. If you have any questions, you can ask them now, or you can think about them for tonight.
So the big projects will not be affected?
Big projects will be affected.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way it works, let's say we have something that requires a site design review.
Yep.
And we have one over here that costs $1 million and one over here that costs $50 million.
Yep.
So the one that costs $1 million, the fee would be $633.
Mm-hmm.
Then if it's more than $1 million, it's the project value based on a multiple with a maximum fee of $5,000. There's a cap.
So the bigger projects get $633?
No, up to
No.
5,000.
Oh, up to,
Up to
okay.
5,000.
All right.
So the issue is it's loaded on the low, but once you get to very substantial projects,
Mm-hmm.
I think the fee schedule is adequate. As far as it depends on how you want to use your fee schedule. But in this case, to capture all the time that we put into larger projects, that's why we have this change.
I have a question, and maybe I just didn't hear the numbers right. You said something $200 and $20?
Oh, that was our development code copy fee. So you come in, hey, I want a copy of the development code. Very uncommon request now that we're online and stuff like that. Comes up less than once a year. Very uncommon. So it came up recently, and this was the first time it came up since the new universal fee schedule, which increased photocopies from $0.25 to 50 cents. And so, someone requested it, and we just went through our routine things, and then a variety of the office staff was like, holy cow, that's a screaming deal. And then I thought about it more, and yeah, that is a screaming deal, $23 versus 200 and some. And so that old fee isn't really capturing the photocopy costs, which are now acknowledged through the universal fee schedule. So now, rather than having the fee, it just says per photocopy printout fee, see universal fee schedule.
So it would vary. You're not telling me that if I got a photocopy today, it's $20, and if I get a photocopy next month, it's $200.
It's strictly based on per page. Yeah.
It's
We're
not
getting
a
rid of that
huge
flat
increase.
fee, which was a screaming deal.
Well, and nobody scarcely ever used it. I mean, people can print things at home now.
It may have only been used twice since I've been here, at least only twice in the last 5 years. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. 2% national average. We're not going for. A lot of cities are going for. Or other areas are going for.
Yeah,
That have increased.
and Matt can probably confirm it. The Portland CPI is 4%.
Yes, the CPI schedule that you see that he's relating to, and also in the utility rates, we do a weighted average of the CPI-U, which is a kind of a retail price of urban customers. And there's the CPI-W, which is retail customers and clerical workers. And then there is the ENR, which is the engineering, basically engineering version of CPI. When you look at the CPI rates that are released every month from LGPI,
They are roughly around 2 to 3%. The average that you're going to see at the utility rates is the 3.222, and that's based on those three. If we were to go and use the Portland actual average, it would actually be about 4.5.
But that's based on increased cost of doing business.
That is, and that it's directly related to the Portland region area. So instead of using the Portland region area that's at 4.5, we thought that it was more appropriate to use a national average of the 3.2.
And we didn't talk to each other. That's just, I've used the national before, and it just happens to be that
Okay.
we're kind of on sync there.
Any other question?
I have a crazy question. This is,
I like crazy.
well, because I've never built a building before, so I have to think about it in terms that I understand. Do you have what it is going to cost the school and the middle school now versus what it'll cost under the new fee schedule? And if,
Obviously, they wouldn't have to pay,
right, because they're already in the process.
but they. So let's see. So they paid. $777 for the site design review, and then for the sensitive lands permit, it was $259. So roughly $1,000. With the if they came in today, well,
After
this is
adopted.
this was proposed to be effective January 1st.
Right.
If they came in 2018, their land use fee would be several $1,000s. Because I think it was a $65 million project. I've had a lot of big projects come in, so the number may be jumbled, but it would be a lot more than what it is currently. So several thousand versus one.
So is this comparable to counties that neighbor us? Like,
Counties?
Is it Scappoose? Is this comparable to Westland? Is it comparable to Clackamas?
This is based on a fee schedule from Oregon City. And their cap was 10,000. I felt, well, that's pretty hardcore. I don't know if we want to go that much.
Just speaking to the public comment from Mr. Topaz earlier, and many other comments we've had in the time I've been on council that were contrary to business, and I just want to make sure that we're not contrary to business. So that's why I'm trying to think if we're comparable to
That we're in line.
And I haven't checked Scapoose's fee schedule lately.
Right, because as an elected and as a community member, that's the number one comment I get is, why aren't you like Scappoose? So it'd be nice to know how we compare to Scappoose.
Yeah. Of course, the easy answer is Measure 5 and 50.
Yeah.
And how that impacted tax base,
Right,
which
and right,
put
but
St.
it's-
Helens on the short end, and Scappoose came out okay.
Not that we have to switch and be exactly like them, but we just have to know why we are where we are. You know, not just randomly make rate changes. We need to have the thought out process to know, yes, Scappoose is here because of this. We are here because of this.
Yeah.
So it does seem fair to me, just like, oh, yeah, I just want to make sure it's fair. It feels fair to me before I said, yeah, this is a good idea.
Yeah, we can take a look at that in between now and tonight just to give you some ideas.
That'd be awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, Measure 5 was kind of goofy. They lost a pickle plant. We lost 4 mills, basically.
Yeah, that's.
Yep. Big difference.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, no problem.
Discuss proposed utility rates. Matt.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have a little sheet that looks like this that outlines and shows what the CPI has been for the previous year and last couple years. Like I just mentioned earlier, we are using a weighted average of the CPIU, the W, and the engineering version of that. And that was decided kind of on when we did the utility rate study with Steve Donovan, who came in and did the presentation. We talked about doing moderate increases over the next several years instead of one huge increase and then no increase and then another huge increase, and keeping it to actually just what the CPI is. And that would keep our waters and utilities and enterprise funds adequately funded to where the actual good news is that for most of the projects that we have coming down the line, when development happens, we could almost pretty much pay for those planned projects in cash and not have to go out for a bond or loans or anything, which means future rate increases don't have to increase to pay for those upgrades. So the rate increase that you see that would be effective January 1 is the 3.222, which is the weighted average of the three indicators that you see. Are there any questions pertaining to that specifically that I can answer? Okay, so moving forward on your desk, I put an updated version of the utility billing admin rules. There was a small change in what was included in your packet between last Wednesday or Thursday or something and today. So that change is noted in here. In your packet version, it shows the reconnection fee, which is the shutoff fee that we charge to customers when we shut them off. That was $75. In the plan on the one currently on the agenda, it showed that it was bumping up to 100, and that actually should have stayed the same at 75, so we're not increasing that fee. And then the main biggest change other than that was we got a lot of feedback when we changed the admin rules last time from property owners who rent or owners who rent their properties out about getting rid of the utility deposit. So I have added that back in at $100. It used to be $75 when John Ellis was here, and then when it was dropped, we took it off. We're putting it back on. The reason I'm putting it at $100 is that is roughly a guesstimate of what a low-use monthly bill is right around. It's usually around 110, 115 on a kind of a low basis usage. So those are the proposed changes that are currently written.
I spoke to Matt a little bit about this ahead of time. I guess I take issue with separating out renters from other customers. Other businesses, other utilities, based whether you pay a deposit based on your record. So like if somebody has late payment history, it doesn't matter whether they own a hotel or whether they rent an apartment, they pay a deposit. If somebody's always been on time their whole life, they shouldn't be penalized with a deposit because they're a good customer. Even if we leave it at $100, I have a hard time separating it out to renters because there are people that don't pay their bills that own their building, and there are people that rent that do pay their bills.
And businesses that
and businesses, and I just think that $100, I would feel better if it was based on half of a billing cycle versus a flat amount, because a restaurant could have $1,000 bill and a private homeowner could have a $160 bill, and there should be some equity where we're treating every customer as every customer. So if you're always on time and you pay your bill, you shouldn't be added. It's expensive enough for people to move without adding a deposit to good paying customers. And $100 is a lot of money for people moving. And if people shouldn't be penalized for being poor, and having to rent. They should be able to move, and if they pay their bill on time, they shouldn't be punished for that.
I would agree with that, but on half the billing cycle, we're changing the way we're doing the billing cycle.
Right. I mean, the rules are based on where we are currently. So that was just my idea. And another place that I've been to for ongoing customers is that once you've had 3 lates within a year, then it would be Matt's decision to assess a deposit at that time. So like if somebody signs up and they have a perfect record and a year down the road, all of a sudden they're late every single time, I'm sorry, we're going to have to ask you for a deposit. But I think that it should be based on somebody's history, not based on how they pay for their dwelling. I just think it seems fair, it seems equitable, and it treats every water customer the same.
So that would mean changing the deposit for keeping it at no deposits currently, and then if a customer has 3 late fees in a year, then it would be up to the finance director's discretion to if they wanted to
see if
do that.
Somebody has a bad history. I mean, if somebody's moving here from one rental to another rental, you know where their account was at their last address.
Mhm.
And so you'd know whether they would need to have a deposit transferred from when one account was paid to the next account. But It just seems like we need to protect our investment without punishing good-paying customers.
To just reply to Susan's comment, these admin rules will be in place until we go to monthly billing, which is still scheduled to be in April of next year.
And then it
So
will
in
change.
April, there will be a new set of admin rules pertaining directly to everybody on monthly billing.
I would concur with your concerns.
Yeah, I think that even if we love this, I think separating renters from homeowners doesn't feel nice. It just doesn't feel nice. It's after we saw what happened with the senior discount and how people were like, those poor people and those elderly people. It's like, I don't like pitting parts of our population against each other.
Right.
It should be customers are customers.
The only thing this would do is I know a lot of renters that get stiffed with the bill when the delinquent
You mean
renter moves
property
out.
owners?
Yeah, property owner moves, or the renters move out, and then they're stuck with that water because we have an automatic lien on the place until it gets paid.
Yeah, I have a problem with
So-
assessing deposits.
So
with
I
renters.
understand the poor, but I also understand the rich too, because how is that fair? I didn't even utilize that water.
Well, people have benefits as a property owner.
But you're not charged unless unless the faucet comes on, you're actually not charged.
I'm
Right?
telling you, property owners have responsibilities of their property. I'm saying if I've lived in St. Helens my whole life, and I've lived in 3 different houses, and I've never had my water shut off, and I've always paid it, why do I now have to pay a $100 deposit just because a few mouthy, whatever people decide that renters are bad and they have to pay a deposit? Now, instead of having to come up with $2,200 to move to a new apartment, the city wants another $100.
Well, I'm
We're
just-
one more people with their hand.
And I guess I'm just speaking, my Uncle Ed has a couple rentals, and somebody forged his name down here, and actually Matt had the copy, and Ed's like, that ain't my name. And he was reliable for a very high water bill that Matt adjusted. He still paid the fair amount, but adjusted. In a case like that, would sure be nice to whoever came down that they had to have that $100 deposit.
Well, that's something where Matt would still have discretion to straighten out.
Yes. But we are
That's
the
a
ones,
single case.
ultimately, we are the ones losing the money.
But that was a single case.
Mhm.
How often does that happen?
Not hardly ever now. We're very more cognizant about who's just signing in. Most of our utility billing staff knows who the owners are of certain properties, and we can recognize signatures pretty easy. I should also say that the deposit that we're talking about here would not be assessed on current renters. It is on everybody moving forward. So we're not going to start calling people and say, hey, you need to pay $100. So this is kind of a process moving forward. So when a new renter moves in, that would be when they would be assessed the late fee. But in Ginny's case, they would not pay a late fee initially, and then if they were
Gotcha.
continuously late, then it would be up to the finance director's discretion to add a late fee.
I think I think we need more than talk on this, and I think we need to come up with a consensus and give direction. And I think part of that direction should be that if we do go with your discretion, I would like to see what your findings are from that discretion in your reports. So your discretionary report would give us a true account of monetary issues, if positive, negative, whatever.
Absolutely.
And I would be I'd be very supportive of giving you 100% discretionary privileges if you follow up with accountability and a report on regular council meetings.
I would be happy to provide that report to you all.
Yeah, I like that too, Doug. And I think we have 4 months. He was saying April, we go to monthly billing, if it all changes, so. Yep.
Council agree with that? Is that something that's kind of
More information is better.
There's a certain amount of discretion right now. Just was it $1,000? Is that?
Yeah, we've taken that. So we originally had I think you're discussing about the leak adjustments. That up to $1,000 was initially, and then once it was greater than $1,000, we had to come to you guys, and there just happened to be 4 or 5 right in a row that were over $1,000, and so we took that back and added it just to discretionary per your agreement from the council. So that's been working very well, I think, with our staff and what I've seen. So I'm happy to provide that report and make those changes in this agreement for tonight's agenda.
Matt, I have a change I'd like to make too. In the tampering with meters, it says that they can be held liable for the cost of the meter.
Yes.
But it doesn't say anything about the shut-off, and the shut-off is usually the thing they break, and that's the most expensive thing.
The shut-off portion of the meter.
That's the most expensive part.
Okay.
Labor intensive for us to replace. So in the first paragraph and the last paragraph, you could add that.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments on the admin rules or utility rate proposal?
Thank you, Matt. Okay, still you, Matt.
Yep. You have a copy of the proposed budget calendar for this next year. We've kind of somewhat started, on my computer, but I start in August, so so the proposed meetings, kind of some basic information about when information is released to staff and feedback for staff to get back to me on their requests and any big changes or anything that's coming up. I did put on March 15th as the first official meeting. It would be an informational budget meeting. That's where kind of we discussed the overall finances of the city and where we were at financially. No discussions about what the budget is and definite numbers and senses, but just a general overview and informational session. And then I have scheduled 3 budget committee meetings. I like to schedule 3 just to be safe because you never know what happens. But last year I think we only had 2, so that's what I would expect on a normal budget calendar meeting. Other than that, is there any questions on or issues with the upcoming dates that I've proposed?
What are they again? 15th and
March 15th, April 19th, April 26th, and May 3rd, if necessary.
Do we have a time yet? Oh,
Margaret had something.
Well, I know library programs don't drive the city budget schedule, but I do need to throw out 2 very important, to us anyway, library programs that are happening. We're having the 3rd installment in the Civics for Adults lecture series on the 19th of April, and on the 26th, the week following, the libraries in Columbia County are collaborating on a community reads event, and we have an author that's coming to Columbia. Well, we have an author that's going to appear at different libraries throughout the county, and that's St. Helens Night to host the author. And he, I can't say who it is at this point, but he has a national presence. And so he's an Oregon author with a national presence, and I would be loath to have to choose between a budget meeting and being there to hear him.
as would I.
About Friday the 13th, Matt.
I'm very happy to move dates around. In the past, typically,
The joke.
in the past, they've typically been held on a Thursday nights, from what I can see from the days of John Ellis. So I just kind of continued that trend.
That would be the 12th. The 12th would be closed. So was that one of your dates? Was it, Margaret?
Yes.
If you switch them to Tuesdays, does that work?
It works for me. I need to double check the city calendar and make sure no other events are going
Well,
on.
we have library board and arts and cultural on the 17th and the 24th, but we have been able to wiggle those around before if we have conflicts. I mean, we've moved the library board meetings to either the week before or to a Monday. So I don't see the 17th as an obstacle for that reason. We've got plenty of lead time to change that one if.
And maybe the 10th? 10th and 17th?
Sure. That works
Does
for me.
April Tuesdays, April 10th and 17th?
That cuts a week off that people have to prepare. I mean, so.
Correct. But they will have, you guys will receive, and the budget committee will receive the budgets in beginning of April. It could be a little bit sooner than what I said on the calendar at April 2nd.
I mean, if you want to do the 17th and the 24th, I could work now to get those other meetings moved.
17th and 24th sound good?
Yeah.
Tuesdays are fine for me.
Okay. So I will make those changes to April 17th and 24th, and then still keeping the March 15th as the informational meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And technically, legally, you have to appoint a budget officer. Normally, it is the finance director of the city. There's no resolution or anything. It's just a general consensus of the council. If you would approve me as the budget manager or somebody else.
We could move on that.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve Matt as the
budget officer.
Budget officer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, Matt, let's discuss contracts with judge and prosecutor.
Okay. So I included a report. This is kind of the 6-month earmark, so to speak, of all the changes that we've made in the court department. At the previous meeting, you met Clayton and the judge, who were happy to talk with you for a little bit, let you know what's been going on in the court department, some of the changes that have been made. I included some of the estimates of revenue that I have for sure that we know of in this report. I can say, which is some very good news, is that based on talking with Clayton the last couple days and looking at the estimates of what he thinks is coming in revenue, I can honestly say that we would estimate to end this fiscal year with about $369,000 in revenue is what we're estimating. The cost of the court department in the budget is $371,000. So in 1 year, we've pretty much taken that burden. That was one of the reasons that we were looking at court, is because it was a lopsided department. It didn't bring in a lot of money, and you have the personnel there. So that's one big thing that I think is very good to hang our hats on. But with that being said, there are always improvements to be made. Whether that is the relationships between Clayton and the judge and the staff, whether that is the relationships between the police officers and Clayton, whether that is the relationships between the city and the county. There are always going to be improvements that need to be made. And I would agree there are improvements that still need to be made.
Those are questions that are just as large.
Correct.
As the financial question.
Correct. I do understand that. So contractually, the city council agreed to do 4 90-day terms pretty much. So a rolling 90-day contract until the end of June next year. So you wanted a 6-month review to kind of assess where things are and then make a decision at that time, or at this time. So my recommendation, based on what I have seen in the court department, the changes that we have done, and the improvements that we still have to make, I would recommend keeping courts open and still moving forward. But that is just my recommendation based on what I see. And obviously the council, I work at your pleasure. So based on the results that you've seen here, and I'm happy to answer any other additional questions, but my recommendation would be to move forward with the court department.
At the same time, we were concerned about the financial aspects. We also requested that we look into working on programs in the county that were available to us? What kind of progress has been made there?
We are currently in discussions with the county on using their work crew. That was one program that was addressed when we had the public forum, as far as people working off their fines who maybe didn't have the financial wherewithal to pay on their fines. They could do work crew to assess up to a certain amount of hours or money off their ticket. We're still working on those agreements, and I don't have anything in paper and writing for you today.
There was another program, and I don't remember the exact specifics, but it involved helping people get their driver's licenses back sooner in another way, so that they would be able to pay their fines.
Correct, and
are we
we
working
do
on that?
we do offer that to people. The specifics of those or how many people have taken advantage of that, I don't have off the top of my head. But I would be happy to come back to you tonight with more information.
Yeah, I'd like
to
to know
see.
what we're doing.
Correct. Yeah, I can definitely look into that and give you some more information tonight.
Thank you. I mean, when we were talking about this a year ago, I didn't think this was possible. So this is a lot of movement in the right direction. And I think that it's great that it's going to come out in the black, but most importantly, we are a service. And as long as we're providing a service and it's a meaningful service for our community, if it comes close to breaking even, I mean, that wins in my book. It's clearly a service. I was pleased with the new attorney arrangement, pleased with his views. I think that we offer to the city attorney, made comments earlier referencing the service, the intimate, the personal connection is important. And, just not related to court at all, but we turned over dog licenses to county. And I don't know if people follow what's gone on with dog licensing and dog catchers, but, just because you give it to the county doesn't mean it's going to be all better. So I'm really pleased with the work you've done, Matt, and I look forward to your continued follow-ups.
I'd still like to see more evidence of the progress in the other areas before going into another year's contract. I'd prefer seeing a 6-month contract rolling, continued the way we have it.
Okay. I think that's totally agreeable. I think it's very appropriate, even as I say, we've made great strides and stuff that we do. Like I said, there are always improvements to be made. And maybe having another check-in in 6 months would be appropriate. And then knowing at that time that 6 months would be at the end of June. So working on, in that time, assuming everything keeps moving forward, that I would come back to you at some certain point with kind of a 6-month contract check-in. And we continue to move forward and continue to improve, and then maybe one time get to that yearly contract.
Yeah, I
ongoing.
think if the keeps going the way it is, as long as we can keep popping the hood and the oil's still registering on the dipstick, then we're good. And that's kind of what the 6-month is a popping the hood and checking everything out.
And it definitely affects multiple departments and what we do at the county, what we do at the police department, all the staff in there. So there are continuous improvements that still need to be made. But we've made significant improvements from where we were at just in the last year.
Would it be possible to have written reports on progress over the next 6 months?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that I'm not frantically taking notes.
Absolutely. I would be happy to provide those. Either, I know we do the quarterly reports, which is, dependent on what information you're looking for.
But this is specific.
Yeah, but more kind of monthly, regularly check-on reports for you.
Okay.
Yep, I'd be happy to provide those.
I want to know what progress is being made on these issues.
Okay.
So can I have
You sure can.
I'll go with the mic for a moment. So the challenge seemed to be from a cost recovery, kind of an economic perspective, and I think courts serves more than cost recovery. I mean, that was our challenge, and it was really taking a look at it to say that it was costing a lot more financially to the city. It came at a price. The other piece is, for lack of a better term, kind of social benefit or social justice impacts on crime, recidivism, just general community livability, enforcing our local codes. And I think the city attorney kind of touched on those things. and I'm not an expert. I don't think anybody is an expert on those kind of things. Maybe Terry's about as close as we get. But if there's, if we want to analyze that somehow, then I'm sure we could try to find some consultant out there to look at that component of
I would like
what
that.
it really means to a community. I don't know who does that kind of work. Maybe there's somebody out there that looks at that. Or not. That's all I have.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So, as much as I'd like to say that we've done a good job raising money, I'm not completely satisfied that we're going in the right direction yet, because I have interviewed some of our boys in blue and a few other people in the city and whatnot, and as far as making money, have we gone too far that way where we're getting to maybe, the community looking like all we're doing is, making money instead of being fair and giving the right service and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to name any names, guys I've talked to at the police force, but what I'm getting from them is that they would rather only have one court in town. Makes their life easier and better. They know what to expect. Various different reasons. So, I mean, if we wanted to have some sort of, survey or have somebody look into that independently, that would be fine. But like I say, I've kind of already went down that path, and at this point, I think my recommendation is we go ahead and maybe do a 6-month contract, and at that time, and go into the process of converting over to the county for our services. But that's just my intake on it. Look at it.
Yeah, I think we still need to consider that too.
Well, what Jenny and Keith both bring up are very similar in terms of kind of a double-edged sword of having a very small community. And it just depends on who you talk to. And generally, the people that I've heard from come out of the court system frustrated, disappointed, victimized. That's kind of the people that you hear from in terms of a phone call, or if you happen to see them on the street or whatever. But generally, what they just say is it's a scam. It's an old boys club, and that's the perception, and that's a perception that's opposite the perception that Jenny was providing with her sense of community and doing the right thing and flexibility and all of that. So it is a double-edged sword, and it can be argued any way you want it. And I think it'd be interesting in 6 months to see where we go.
I think allowing another 6 months provides me more opportunity to finish some of the things that we have started, like working with the county more, and also working with police staff. I know that there is some differences in how a new prosecutor comes in and views things and wants things, and that's always kind of a weighing match of, what we're providing for our prosecutor to do to do everything, but also at the whims of the council of how you want the prosecutor to act, whether he is more aggressive or less aggressive. He takes direction from you as the council to what you want to see.
I'm not sure aggressive or more or less aggressive is the point. But
correct.
There's a relationship that needs to be developed. The relationship with the police department is a very important relationship.
Correct, and I think we made at least one major step the other week when Clayton actually did have a meeting with police staff. which is something the old prosecutor never had. So in that respect, it may seem small. It may have not have been the best meeting, depending on who you talk to. But the fact that we're having that meeting is a big step, especially from my side as looking at the prosecutor. And like I said, there will always be improvements that need to be made, and I'm happy to work on those improvements for you. So I think the 6-month check-in provides me a little bit more time and provides staff a little more time and the prosecutor to really go through and see how can we best define this court system to work the most effective for the community that it serves.
We want to provide the best possible service to the community, whatever that is.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Okay, request from library director regarding staffing needs. Margaret.
Yes. In your packet, you'll see the request for council action. The summary of my request is that I would like for you to approve the continued part-time employment of our retired library technician through 2019-2020, the fiscal year, and to approve a half-time library assistant for this same period beginning in January. The background for this, I need to actually go back 18 months ago when our library technician retired and continued working with us half-time in order to effect a transition between her skills and someone on the staff we've identified to assume her role longer term. In the last 18 months, we have transitioned half of her workload to this other employee who is training as a library technician 1. So there's a significant workload that was moved over, but the new employee that is assuming her duties still has to work half-time on the front desk. And so we've gotten to a point where she's been able to take a number of cataloging classes and assume patron accounts and collections and interlibrary loan, but she really doesn't have enough free time to actually sit with our experienced technician to start to learn these skills. This is a little more compounded by the fact that cataloging rules nationwide are going through a change. And also, we've learned this fall that our software for the cataloging unit is changing, and at some point in the next couple of years, we have to adopt that new cataloging unit, so we'll have to train on that as well. And so what I had anticipated when the budget was done for the current fiscal year was that our half-time retiree would retire completely, and that we had built in a quarter's worth of labor for the last portion of this year in order to hire the replacement library assistant. And we would make this transition where we'd have her retire, the person would adopt the full duties, and we'd bring in her half-time library assistant replacement. But this transition is proving more problematic just because there really needs to be some time for some side-by-side mentorship. And so our retiree has expressed the desire to stay on for 2 more years at a half-time. She represents a lot of institutional knowledge. I think we could benefit a great deal by having her continue with us. And so in order to add library assistant hours so we can affect this change, I am recommending that we utilize the funds that we have already in our budget for this last quarter of this year to fund those library assistant hours, and that we do a reappropriation of funds from the material and services side of our budget to cover the the other quarter of that library assistant time, the January through March portion that we don't have in the budget. And the cost of that would be, the cost of that reappropriation would be about $6,000. So beefing up the library assistants by 20 hours a week would come at no cost in the current fiscal year, because we could take those funds that were already there plus the reappropriation, and this would give us a chance to start affecting the more complicated part of that succession training. Beyond that, then there would be the incremental change to our budget going forward would be a half-time library assistant for a 2-year period. And the annual cost of that is in the neighborhood of about $21,000.
Doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, it does, but it doesn't for what the library serves our community. 20 more hours per week.
Well, we currently have 47 hours that were open, and we traditionally have had 60 hours of library assistant labor in order to cover 2 5-hour shifts per day for 6 days out of the week. And that allows for opening hour, time for them to come before we open to do opening procedures, and time on the tail end of the day for closing. And then there's a little bit of overlap during the middle of the day, so they can just pass off information between the two of them before they pass off the shifts. So we have that kind of coverage. And so right now, this person that's trying to train to do cataloging spends 20 hours a week herself personally on the desk. And the other 40 hours are covered by 3 people, one who works 20 and 2 others that work 10 each. So it would be my desire to increase the 2 10-hour per week people to 20 hours per week each. And then we'd have no additional training needed. They'd already be people on staff that work 10 hours, and they just go to 20.
And clearly I support this too.
What's that going to cost, Matt?
I think Margaret mentioned it a little bit ago. She's already kind of discussed this with me to get the numbers. I think it was like 6,000 and a little bit.
6,000 this year, but 21.
It'll be
new budget year.
Yeah,
But the 6,000 comes out of my current budget.
Yeah.
Correct.
Your reappropriation.
correct. So for this year, she'll move money from materials and services up to personnel services through a reappropriation, which we do every 6 months. But next year, like you said, that additional position would be around $21,000. It's part-time. It doesn't have benefits, so it doesn't cost as much. In the budget, though, which you'll find out over the next few months, we do have capacity to safely assume that this position can move forward. So I'm very comfortable in saying that.
And it's allowing us the time to train an employee that right now doesn't have the time to train for the future job that's going to be expected of her.
In a lot of libraries, cataloging is done by a degreed librarian, and in others, it's a technical services job such as we have. And given the choice to recruit a degreed professional to do cataloging versus training from within, I felt it was appropriate to give our library assistants a professional path beyond the entry-level position that we have. So this represents a significant increase in expertise for this individual, and I think our current library technician has been with us in almost 28 years before retiring. So she has a lot of knowledge to transfer, and I guess I was a little optimistic in my hope that this could happen in a 2-year period while still wearing a couple of hats, and it's proven to be a bit challenging. I mean, we've accomplished a lot, but she, like I said, she's taken a lot of classes in cataloging and assumed all of the other duties. but the side of it where you do the cataloging and you actually select the items that are going to be purchased for the library is a big piece that she still needs a lot of time with.
And this is an example of succession planning, which is something that we need to look at in all departments.
And of course, this is a 2-year window of overlap for the two of them.
So what does the rest of the council think?
Well, I'm a bit confused about the timelines. Approve the part of employment of the retired library technician to Dan Barbie through FY 2019 and 2020. What's that going to cost?
She's already in the budget right now.
I know. Okay, so that will not cost anything additional to the city at this point.
Correct. The net difference would be a half-time library assistant at a roughly $21,000 a year. See, I already have all these people on staff. I just want to add somebody at the front desk so that the person that we're trying to train can be relieved of that responsibility and focus on these new duties. So the net difference over the next 2 years is around $20,000, $21,000.
Then
when
is there a problem with? I don't think the council has any problem with the $6,000 figure that's already in the budget. There's no problem with that. Matter of fact, I don't even think it needs to even be brought up. It adds a bit of confusion to me. What you're asking is for the council to approve a $21,000 adjustment in the budget for the next 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And why is there any problem with letting the budget committee deal with this when the budget committee comes around? Is there some kind of time crunch that you're under that in training that I'm not picking up on?
I mean, it certainly would be part of a budget discussion. It's just gives a certain reassurance to the people involved that this is the plan for making this transition. If you feel it means that we're making a budget decision ahead of the actual budget, I can understand that. But I was trying to give them some reassurance that this was how we would affect the transition between an employee who would stay around for 2 more years in order to help us acquire these new skills.
That clarifies it for me.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I guess what you're asking for is a vote of confidence in many senses. If this is going to fly in the next 2 years, and if it's going to go through the budget committee, I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that this council person is a strong advocate of all our programs, and that includes the library. How we balance all of that out is very helpful with our citizens that make up the budget committee, and hearing from them and hearing from other people. I'm not certain if this is the place to make that decision on monetary specifics, but again, I think you can go away with knowing that this council person you have the vote of confidence from this person. Okay, so that's all I can say.
Okay.
That's all I.
Councilor Locke or Carlson, comments?
No, already comment. Don't know what it's going to cost.
Okay.
I concur with Councilor Morton. Not specific to the library. I mean, everybody knows here I'm in the library a lot, and they need all the help they got. But, you know, we go down this road and we're about ready to begin the budget calendar, and it just feels like unless there's a reason to do it before the budget cycle, and I don't know, it's we keep adding people, half a person here, whatever, and it's like it's outside of the budget cycle, so it just kind of feels funny. But of course, you know, it's like the services are warranted. We want to train our people to go forward. So I'm just following up. I agree with what Doug had said.
So do you need our approval though for the appropriated funds?
That
These
will
move-
come later.
I think what we're hearing, Margaret's delivering an operational plan of how she wants to run the library, and rather than taking a real short-sighted look to rearranging some financing short-term to get us through the end of the year, and she's doing that, but just what it means in the long term too.
You've been a good manager. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
She's-
absolutely.
Nobody runs a tighter pencil than Margaret. Sharper pencil.
Yep.
Well, I just want to grow our own, and I just think we have a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of institutional knowledge with our longtime employee, and I just want to be able to grow this next person that will fill that role, just like our previous employee has. And it's when you have 28 plus years of experience, it takes a little bit of time to pass that
transition
along,
over, yeah.
particularly in an environment where a lot of the things like the software and the cataloging rules are changing, and so there's a lot to grasp. All right. Well, I will, if I'm understanding you, I proceed with my plan for this year. All right.
Yes, and it sounds like you've also got some support, so if you're hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, department reports. Terry.
Now we're on. All right. Technology.
Do you want to turn on your mic? You on?
It's on.
I think it's on.
Okay.
I think we're good.
I can't see it from over here, so.
Yeah, lights on. Yeah, we're.
Oh, you got those.
Can I have a go back?
Can you
I want to go
have a
back
go
for
back?
a minute. Back up. And I'm only asking for a go back because I sat here quietly and listened to the court's discussion.
Yes.
And I think I could be speaking for some of the other staff, courts included, as I wonder what is it we're trying to measure. As we asked Matt for a report in 6 months, is it financial? Is it based on customer satisfaction? Is it based on the perceived legitimacy of our courtroom? Is it based on officers' perception of the courts? Or I'm confused as to what it is we're trying to fix. And I'm not asking you to tell me now.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that as we go forward, we identify what
it is.
What are we looking at? Because as I sit here and listen to this discussion about a court running in the black or running in the red, or a court that's perceived as legitimate and fair, or as somebody said, a good old boys club, at the end of the day, as long as the police department remains separate from this decision and this discussion, I mean, we have our job to do, which should be always separate from the courts. As I say that, we're always at the front edge of that discussion. We are perceived as the mechanism that gets people into that courtroom. It's our fault. But at the end of it, they need to feel like they were treated fairly, that the court was a place where they felt that there was some trust and legitimacy. And my hope for all of us is that's the direction we're headed in. And whether we're black or red, whether the police are satisfied or not, really isn't what we're talking about. I think our community deserves a court that's functioning appropriately, and they feel like they're treated fairly when they walk out the door.
That's right.
And I hope that that's where this discussion is headed.
Good point.
Well said.
I'm just, like I said, I sat here quietly and sort of got ahead of steam and just wanted to share. That's all.
Thank you.
Department reports. Many of you have asked about our hiring processes. We've done backgrounds on 3 candidates for 2 positions. Those backgrounds were finished this week. All of them came out fine. So we have the holidays coming up, so we're going to move into the physical agility testing next week, late next week after Christmas. And then we got another holiday with New Year's, so we'll wait till after that to move into the psychological and medical testing. So I'm still thinking mid-January before we get past the holidays and we're ready to go. So, but so far everything's looking good for all of the candidates. And in that process, meanwhile, I'm not sure that I've shared with you, and I should, as we're talking about hiring, we've moved along in a process to hire some reserve officers. We're looking at 2, and Lieutenant Hogue is getting ready to kick off another reserve academy in January, and a lot of that credit is owed to Lieutenant Hogue and for all of his work behind the scenes on that, but really it goes back to what started this whole thing for us most recently, and that is the Foursquare Church and the Reindeer Run. As every year they do that, part of their proceeds go to the police department for our reserve program, and that's what helps fund that Reserve Academy and outfitting those officers. So we'll be doing that starting in January. It'll run all the way through June. You have your own. Turn this off now.
You know, I've noticed that Officer Claus has been very busy.
He is very
yes.
busy.
Yes. I've seen him. I've seen the abominable snowman in cuffs. I've seen him ringing the Kiwanis bell.
Quite
at
literally
Safeway.
became an overnight sensation since he arrested the abominable snowman. I mean, seriously, we had, Crystal tells me, inquiries from the New York Post, a TV station in Boston, Chinese television station.
Nice.
The AP, Fox News have all reported on the story. Crystal's done an amazing job with building that promotion, and it's going to continue through the rest of the month.
Yep.
There was an appearance across the street in the courtroom, and that was featured today, which is only going to further this public interest. But as we've tried to, really, so people have asked, why are you doing this? Each and every year you will hear a message from law enforcement about don't drink and drive, be responsible, be safe, have a safe holiday season. And we could do that. We could write a press release that says don't drink and drive, but we do it every year. This has allowed us to share a message in a unique way. It's creative, and we're having a lot of fun with it, and it's certainly getting a lot.
It definitely grabs people's attention when you see those photos.
But really, you pointed out he's been out bell ringing.
Yep.
He was at the fairgrounds the other day with the Holiday Hope and the baskets for the Kiwanis and the Toy and Joy program. Last night he was at the bowling alley, bowling with the autistic group from local kids. I can't remember the name of the acronym for the group, but Friday he will be hanging out with some kids at Lewis and Clark School. He's going to visit a preschool here in town, and then seriously go out on patrol with an officer, and he'll be recognizing folks for their good behavior Friday afternoon. So anyway, stay tuned. He's going to be a busy guy.
Yeah.
This is relationship building with the community. That's great.
It's been a lot of fun. We've really enjoyed it.
And Donut Day was a good success too, Terry.
Yeah, we raised 3,700 pounds of food, well over $2,000 in cash. It was one of our most successful donut days. Yeah, it was good. Thanks for reminding me.
Yep. Okay, Sue.
Okay, I think that's on. Mine's a different color than yours, I think.
Green, mine was red.
Yeah, so, looks like it's on. I just wanted to point out on the agenda for this evening's meeting on the approve and authorize for signature, there is an agreement with the Oregon State Marine Board for repair of boat used to access Sand Island. This is actually a little grant agreement. We just recently had to replace the motor on the pontoon boat that we use to get the guys back and forth and haul materials and debris on and off the island. Well, we don't haul debris to the island, but we haul debris off the island. While they were installing the new motor, they discovered that there was a problem with the pontoons, and that would cost a little over $6,500 to replace the floats that are used under the boat. We contacted the Marine Board. They said that would qualify for one of their emergency small grants under their program that they have. So we applied for a little grant from them for $6,500, and our contribution will be $33 in cash, but also installing the new floats when they get here. And so within 72 hours, the Marine Board approved the grant, and so that's on the agenda tonight to approve. So as soon as we get that back to them, we'll get that paperwork going and get those floats out here and get those installed so we can get the boat back on the water. And
start hauling some debris over there.
We're going to haul that debris over to the island. Be able to get over there and get those, get everything maintained and do what we do over there. That's about all that I have.
All right. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thanks.
Neil.
The only thing I had is, with the council's permission, I'd like to advertise that we would take and recycle Christmas trees at the Parks Department, and maybe put up a donation box, and any donations we get, we'll give to the food bank.
Good idea.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
I had a question. There's lots of paint marks on Gable Road by the high school. Does that mean work is happening, or does that mean they're just measuring?
That's for the surveying being done for that project. It's
That's just
surveying.
measuring.
Just
It's not
surveying.
any closer to happening. It's just a year's
Well,
worth
it's
of
closer
dollars.
every day, but
Yeah.
I mean, survey's part of that process.
Survey is the very first step, and so yeah, that's exactly what they're doing is surveying the width of the right of way, what's all there, where all the utilities are.
I get asked, and I just tell people that's part of the measuring process to get ready for that project.
That's
So
exactly, that's
the
the very first
eventuality
step.
is the sidewalks, and to get the road improved and safer for everybody to transverse, but
Yes.
lots of utilities in that road have to be measured and have
Oh
to
yeah,
be located.
absolutely. So that's the very first step before they can even put together a plan that says, here's how we propose to put everything, where the sidewalks and the bike lanes and everything are gonna go. So that's the very first step. They still are looking at construction in the summer hopefully of 2019.
Okay, super.
So many lines. Somebody called in a complaint about graffiti the other day.
On Gable.
Yeah.
Graffiti, yeah. There's a lot of colors out there.
And then, not that you would know, because it's not St. Helens, but do you know what all the digging is going on just the other side of Scappoose? There's a lot of digging, a lot of marking, a lot of cones, all the way from Means Nursery to the way station.
I'm not aware of anything.
I'm guessing, I think they're putting in a new culvert, boring a new
It looks
culvert
like
across
drainage
there.
issues.
That's what
it looks like.
to me, but I don't know
Okay.
for sure.
It's just curiosity.
Start a rumor. Superhighway going through. Overpass.
Bypass, OMEC bypass.
Okay, Margaret.
Through the years, I've talked a lot about our relationship with the writers in the St. Helens area, and we continue to host National Novel Writing Month, and the group that aligns with our municipality continues to be very productive. And the stats are unofficial, but I don't know if you remember last year our writers had the 8th highest per capita word count in the nation, and this year it looks like they're going to be 5th. So they're just a very productive group, and I'm really pleased that we've developed that environment where writers feel like they have a relationship with the library. And this isn't the only thing that we host and provide for them throughout the year, but that finished at the end of last month, and I'm always glad to see that they feel we provide an environment for them to be productive writers, because of course libraries need writers. So that's the good news.
Can I have a question for you, Margaret?
Yes.
I haven't seen Margaret in a while. I didn't know if we'd have ever had a young adult book group. If we've ever tried, I know that a lot of groups in community have done book club and like reading stuff, and I don't know, I know you do game night and Lego stuff, but I didn't know if we've ever targeted those
There
people that
have
read
been
those series
in times
books.
past. Pizza was always a good incentive to get kids to come and talk about books, but we haven't in recent times.
Okay.
We're currently working on growing an adult book group, and maybe we can look to that next. But
Yeah, I didn't know if it would be good to do it by young adults or by genre, because there's how you do that, but there's so many series in your libraries that have so much knowledge about what's available. And I don't know if a lot of our community realizes that the librarians, you can tell them what kind of story you're looking for and they'll help you find stuff. I don't think everybody knows they do that.
One thing that is happening in the school district is that they are promoting Oregon Battle of the Books. And that's a very popular program in other school districts. I mean, Beaverton is just crazy about, they call it OBOB for short. And so we're supporting that program by having multiple copies of those books on hand in our collection so that kids that want to participate and read the OBOB titles and get ready for the competition can have extra copies by coming to our library. So that's one way where they do have this book activity going on in the school district, and we're kind of peripherally supporting that. So that's probably right now the best avenue for that kind of interest to be promoted because it's actually within the schools.
I heard OBOB, but I didn't know what it was.
Yep.
Thank you.
Matt?
I do have 4 things. That's
Okay.
it.
Just 4.
Just 4.
All right.
Okay. The last month or so, the city bought a live feed camera to kind of test out on our own to see if we can kind of get it working. We talked about cameras for the plaza here, and then one kind of going out around the park and river. So we bought that last month or so. I've been playing around with it and was able to get it working and get it online and get it streaming and everything. So we are now just waiting for Azimuth, who does a lot of the wiring and everything for the cabling for the city, to get back with us on a date where he can set up some cabling up to the roof. But as far as everything is going right now, that should be something we can easily tackle and take off your goal list easily by the end of the fiscal year, if not within the next couple months.
Cool.
To get that going and promote it and get that out there. So I just want to give you a quick update that we're still working on it. We're almost there, and we'll get there soon. Also, if you notice, the TV on the wall is live on Comcast, so we are back on Comcast right now and streaming, as well as online and everything else. So I think this was a process. We started back in April or May or something, I think, right? Kind of before the end of the fiscal year, but we've made a lot of changes here in 6-7 months. So I appreciate you being patient with us and all the issues and continuing issues, as we actually did find a couple mic boxes that were bad, that were causing some of the feedback issues that we had previously. So that's why they don't have mic stands back there, and we've kind of rotated them around to fix. So I want to thank you for your patience on that, and we still have some more stuff to do, blinds and everything else, but the biggest thing was getting Comcast back up, so that is up and running. The only other thing I want to do is that the City of St. Helens was recognized yesterday. I got the official word that we did receive the GFOA budget award again for this last fiscal year, so just want to let you know we got the little 2017 plaque and continuing that trend. So, that's all I have.
Very good. Is that 4 already? That's what I thought. Yeah,
Oh,
me
well,
too.
okay, number 4 is,
We'll take 3.
I'm already going. I got a list of 14 things. You want me to go? But just a reminder that, Rick, if it's possible for you to find someone for the budget
Officer
committee,
for budget committee.
that would be appreciated, whether it's new or a returning member or something. So
It was Mike, and I don't think he's gonna.
correct. He decided not to continue. So
Yep.
if you can find someone, that would be great.
All right.
So.
Kathy?
Just to update you a little bit more current from what Matt just reported, our Comcast station is up. The video is up. The audio is not. For some reason, there's no audio, and our AV person actually contacted Latronics during the meeting and found out that there's supposed to be some sort of cable that's connected, and it's not connected. So hopefully by January 3rd, it'll be something, but it's been quite a process, as you all know. But,
yes.
Also, Granicus is live streaming from the website. The link to get there is kind of hidden. It's, you have to go to boards and commissions to get to where it says St. Helens Broadcast. So I'm gonna be working with the AHA to get it on one of the drop-down menus so that it's more, something that easily can be clicked on. And so your patience is greatly appreciated. Things are changing, and it's just a lot different than it was before. So I'm learning, and I need to pass this information on to the secretaries that do boards and commissions, and so it's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yes.
That's all I had.
Thanks, Kathy.
Mhm.
John?
Okay, if there's start with some procedural kinds of things. There's a executive session item here. I think that the labor negotiations one is not fully developed, and since we last met, it's in process, but it's not ready to bring back to talk about. And similarly with the real property transactions, there's been a lot of activity between councils and parties, but there's really nothing for the council to come back and look at. So unless you have something specifically that's not related to those you want to talk about, or unrelated to those, I don't have anything to add to the executive session.
Okay.
So talking about, I wanted to let you know that we put out a letter to all the merchants, and this is an effort to kind of leverage our tourism investment, and not only the social standing of St. Helens as a world-class tourism community now, but the economic impacts to the local businesses. And Tina and I have been working together to create an invitation to engage directly with those businesses, to bring them in and talk about how we can do things better to benefit more people.
Yep.
We don't know exactly how that's going to go as far as people responding. We hope to fold that in with the Halloween Town discussions in February. But it's really bigger than just the Halloween. It's a year-round kind of perspective to see how the city can help its local businesses out. It's not meant to be, it's more of a we thing than a us and them.
That's right.
And a listening session really we probably won't have all the answers, but at least we'll
know the questions.
Ideas.
Maybe even more questions when we get done. We don't know, but we're at least taking that effort to take that leadership to engage and rather than rely on other organizations in the communities. Lastly, our energy for the Park and Rec collaboration with the school district continues. We're talking about it internally, how we can structure working with the school district to really take that on as a priority in the future. And when we get closer to budget time, and hopefully we'll have kind of a framework of a program that may look at and discuss. But sounds good. It feels good, and happy to work on it.
I personally bounced that idea off probably about 20 of my close personal friends, and they really liked the idea. I mean, really liked it. So it sounds like this could have a lot of traction and go somewhere. So hopefully.
That's it.
Thanks, John. All right, Councilor Lott.
So to kind of pigtail on Terry and this court situation is we all have kind of different ideas, and somewhat anyway, and we go on and we get a 6-month report, and we really don't get anything solved. So I would suggest that maybe we form a subcommittee to look into all the different things that we've talked about, and then come up with some good substantial information so that we can make a good decision.
Who would you think should be on that committee? Representing?
A couple counselors and a couple staff, so.
That might be a good result, a good way to go after the 6-month finding, and allow Matt to do his findings, allow him to give a report, with the idea that we'll form a committee and discuss those topics as we go down. I don't want to form a committee and then not even know what they're going to do.
Well,
So I'd rather listen to a good report, a very effective study, 6 months, and then follow up on your proposal of working with the committee to get a good finding.
But we haven't really defined what that report is going to consist of, and I think having people looking into it would help define that during the 6 months.
I think that's a good idea, Keith.
Yeah, why don't you? I think it's a great idea too. Go ahead and put something together, bring recommendations. Just this is what our meeting consisted of. These people. This is our recommendations. No, I think
Good,
that's...
good luck. I mean, if you do that now, good luck.
Well,
I mean, it's just like...
right now, we're just spinning our wheels. We're not getting anywhere.
Well, he won't be spinning his wheels.
Well,
he's got a
we've had several reports already. We've been doing this for how many years now, and we keep getting the same report. Well, this has happened, but getting back to Terry's thing, what are we actually looking for?
Right.
What do we really want?
Well, bottom line, who here in the last year, I'm just going to ask a question, and don't take offense to this, okay? But who here in the last year has sat through a couple days of court over there?
Me? You?
Yep. But
I
as
have
of most
before,
recently, to
not-
see how it changed, because I was in the old when Lori was there.
I've seen the new.
Yeah, I was there too. I went in for an observation not too long ago.
Well, I'm just curious.
But there's a lot more to this than sitting over there in the
No,
courtroom.
I understand that.
Right.
But it also reflects on budget. It's kind of a lot of different things, but like Terry had stated, is it more how it serves the community?
Right, exactly.
Right.
It is about how it's serving the community.
Yeah.
So I think we need to more clearly define what we want them to report about, and I think that's what this committee could help do, maybe.
Keith, I'd like
What we
to.
wanna know.
I'd like to see that committee start with some good information, and in my report, I was going to follow up like you are following up with Terry's suggestion, and ask Matt to go a certain way. So, if you want to wait for me to put my idea in, but if we go with your idea, my idea will be too late. You understand?
Well, why don't we talk about your idea right now then, since
Thank
we're
you.
talking about that?
Okay. Well, that's what I was hoping for. Thank you. One of the things that I was very much listening to is that if we have a public forum about this, the stakeholders are going to be totally stacked. And we'll be hearing from attorney after attorney after attorney after attorney, and possibly, or some other segment of the courts. And I think it'd be pretty emotional, and I think I just don't think it would be a good way to sort out, to get facts.
And I agree with you.
Public forum, I don't think would work. One of the things that I think would work very effectively is that if Matt came up with a survey of people who went through the court system, who had their case heard, and they were asked at the very end to, in an objective way, an objective by were you treated fairly, poorly, good, and they could circle a few things and check off a few boxes, but give them a very effective tool also to comment on why they made those decisions. And if we had those kinds of testimonies from people who went through the court system, so addressing Terry's concern specifically about it's the people that court serves that's important. We need to hear from them. We need to have a good survey from them. So that would allow your committee that you would like to sort through those kinds of things, those very factual kinds of things, without the stakeholders kind of getting involved and kind of like trying a land grab, if nothing else, of what to of what to obtain out of the court system. So that's where I think that's what's missing, and I think that just a survey by people going through the system would reveal something about how they feel about the courts.
I agree. That's a piece of it. But then we should also have a survey for
The
a few other groups also.
Merchants.
The merchants.
Yes. Yep.
The lawyers.
The neighbor that has a nuisance neighbor that needs special attention, that's probably going to get overlooked, and that's what we heard. What was his name? Peter saying.
I mean, that's what we've heard.
Yeah.
On lots of nuisance complaints. I mean, how many neighbors have
That
we
we
had
have
come in
the-
here meeting after meeting after
We
meeting
have
that
the
you
meeting.
still haven't taken?
We have the ability to actually do something about that through our courts versus we could say, well, sorry that happened to you. It went over there and we can't do nothing, or it gives us a little more.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not true. That's the other thing too. Is I mean, we've heard from the courts before, but it's only certain people we hear from, and then some. You talk to one, and it's a totally different story than you hear from the other.
And that would be the bad thing about a survey just at courts, Doug, would be, I know if I'm going to court, you've already taken time out of my day. I'm losing going to end up paying money. And I'm not happy. I'm just not,
But
traffic tickets are much easier. I've had one a number of years ago, safety belt, went over and paid $80 at the courthouse because it got dropped to half. Didn't know court, just went in and played the court, was done. That's easy. So
I guess so.
One thing, I didn't mean to belabor this. I'm sorry.
No.
The question, if I'm building a survey in response to Doug's proposal, it's not about whether or not you're happy, because as you pointed out, Rick, nobody leaves the courtroom happy.
Yeah.
The question is, were you given a voice, and did you feel like you were treated fairly?
Yes.
And that's it. Your satisfaction sometimes depend on the size of the check you had to write, and that's not ever going to be a positive thing. But were you treated fair? Were you given a voice? And maybe even, do you feel like traffic enforcement, code enforcement, whatever it is that brought you to the courtroom is an important part of our criminal justice system in St. Helens? And that would give you something to chew on, rather than we had 50 people that are all mad at us because they had to write us a check for their speeding ticket.
Okay,
They might all agree that we
question.
should do speed enforcement, we should be writing speeding tickets, but I'm not happy that I had to write a check. And that's going to happen. You're going
sounds like
the prisons are filled with innocent people, right? They're all unhappy. They're all mad because they're locked up. But I think they will tell you that they were treated fair, and they got to have their day in court and share their voice. But the result, well, I'm not happy with it, but it is what it is. I think that's why you can phrase it, your survey, appropriately and come up with a response that gives you something to chew on and gives you some direction for the committee that Keith's talking about.
Would you be okay working with Keith on the questions on the survey and maybe a couple different surveys, one for there and maybe one to hand out to some merchants to mail in? Like Ace Hardware has a big theft, Walmart does. Target them and just see how they feel. Of course, they're going to like it because they get to prosecute, and it, costs us money because we have to send an officer out there. But
I kind of like to hear more from the staff with this, because we'll have our time to sort things out. So from the get-go, I'd like to hear that from maybe Terry and Matt and people who are kind of involved on the staff, possibly John, and I wouldn't mind being on the committee, to sort those kinds of things out. But I don't know if I would be on the committee and want to have and deal with and formulate the questions at the same time for other.
hate to maybe restate the obvious, but so the council's one of the primary roles of council is to establish programs and policies to the best how they see the best interest of the community and to allocate the resources to do that. This question of metrics and how do you measure success it's complex. There's social components, there's economic components. You could coming up with the questions is going to be quite an endeavor, I think. But staff can work on that as an assignment over the next 6 months, for sure, or sooner if you want. So.
Yeah, I mean, to your point and to a couple other people brought up, it's kind of like you want to have like 25% of the respondents be people that work in the court, and then 25% people that are like property owners, and then 25% offenders. So then you kind of have it coded. So then you have a balance. So it's not all court employees. It's not all criminals. It's like you want to have to know that, our retail felt this way. Our clients in the court, if you will, felt this way. And so we kind of know, because for me that has never done business in this court, it's awesome. I've never been in there. They seem nice. I feel safe on my street. I think they're doing their job. And so, I mean, everybody's got a different perspective from where you are in your life. If you've not been in that courtroom, you have a different vote versus somebody that got a ticket.
So
Yep.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that piggybacks on the whole idea that things would be, I like the way you've said that in terms of dispersing the stakeholders, because in a public forum that would not happen. It would be chaos.
Sure.
So.
Because then the whole community would be representative by those dynamics.
Well, the other part too is just, I mean, the reason we heard from the merchants was because somebody got in their ear saying, well, nobody's going to be prosecuted. We don't know that. I mean, I don't.
Well, I want to make sure that we're talking to somebody objective is talking to our law enforcement, because off the record, on the street, people in law enforcement are saying, I said, well, what happens when parents are providing pot to their kids? And they go, well, it's against the law, but it's not prosecuted. So there's lots of stuff out there that never goes to court and nobody ever gets in trouble for. But I don't think the public knows that, and I don't think how you fix that, and I don't think opening or closing our court necessarily fixes the problems we perceive. Because to Matt's problem is we've made changes. What changes do we need to make? Is it making a change to the court, or is it having the court across the street? And I don't think we're at that point to decide what that change is. At least I'm not at the point to decide whether more changes need to happen here, or whether we're good, or whether it's time to make a bigger change. And I haven't heard enough information to warrant making a bigger change.
We'll find out in 6 months, right?
There we go.
Yep. Or maybe sooner.
Well, if I can piggyback on what John suggested of staff working with that, maybe I can work with John and some court staff and maybe and bring back to you some ideas and a timeline and outline of what we could do and how it could work. And that way you kind of have a more idea of what at least staff's opinions on how to address the issue may be.
Keith, that wasn't to shoot down your committee thing, because I think the committee thing is important. Yeah, I just think that it might be, let's look at some things that the committee will have an opportunity to look at.
And I that's all part of the process.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make this thing move forward in a constructive way so that we're not sitting here in 6 months and not knowing exactly what we're all sitting here with 5 more ideas on what's going on.
You're trying to push it. Either it's going to go this way or it's going to go that way. You're just trying to push it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that
Gotcha.
determining what the issue is depends on more than just the court staff. I think.
Correct.
I think that depends on the input of the stakeholders as well.
Correct. Yeah, and what I
to identify who those stakeholders are.
correct, and what I meant to say was if you allow allow staff to come back to you with some ideas of how we go about and who we contact, and then also keep in mind that also with the contracts we did include kind of some program objectives in their contracts of things to stick by. And you may not remember that it was on the very last page of the prosecutor and the judge contracts, just to kind of give, at least for the time being, a general framework of what their job was and what kind of values you wanted them to take at hand when they're doing their job for the city. So that is something also that we could look at and better define and better refine over time. So I would be happy to work on it with staff and come back to you with a plan of how to look at different types of groups and what to do. We can contact some other cities to maybe see some actual consultants that do like work of similar kind of structures. Maybe
what kind
even
of
if
time frame
it's
would you need to get that? Like, what meeting could we expect that at? Like February?
I would say at the very latest February. I mean, it's not going to take me long to start contacting cities and maybe even contact our lawyers groups to see what information, what stuff that they went through in Damascus, how they went about evaluating their court system.
Yeah, I'd like to see
everything like that.
comparisons.
Mhm.
Our court system, other court systems, how they function,
And obviously,
comparisons with the county.
Obviously, if we did not care, we would not be having this discussion. So, and it's always a hot topic. And when it got brought up when I was first came in, boy, I was like, oh, this again. So it's been an ongoing hot topic.
For a long
We're not
time.
done with your time yet, Keith.
No.
So,
That was
Councilor
only
Locke.
my first one.
Yes.
So, on a brighter note, so we had the dinner for the Christmas ship captains, and it was, I think, the largest one ever. This was the 10th year we've done that. They brought the largest fleet they've ever brought
That was awesome. And they
to the city.
Did they stay longer out front?
They were there a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
hours.
Yeah, I was
Over
amazed.
2 hours. Yeah.
I was amazed.
I
at
think
that.
closer to 3 hours.
That was
it
nice.
it was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. And I didn't hear any complaints about the electricity. Sue, do you have a report on that?
Oh, yes. I did not hear one thing at all about it. If there was any issues at all, so.
No news is good news.
That's my thought as well.
I haven't talked to Mike Stone yet, the guy that kind of get a hold of me, but I'll find out and see. I didn't hear
and-
anything, so it must have went fairly good.
I'm hoping that that's the case. Our person who was on call that week didn't have any call outs regarding the electricity or the boats or any issues down there. So
That was both fleets, right?
I think
Keith?
that
Yeah.
sounds,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sounds
This is the only
better
place
than
they
it has
do
been.
both fleets. And they actually started that about the 4th year after I started feeding them. I don't know if there's any correlation with that or not.
After we started feeding
we
them.
started feeding them, yes. So, actually, the restaurant started feeding them. So, anyway. Sue, the RV stuff going on down to Marina. The new RVs that,
Oh, the RVs. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said Army.
no, RV, sorry.
Wow.
That Brad's putting in there and whatnot.
Yes.
So, a few different things. The one concern of mine is that new RV park below the bluff now.
Mm-hmm.
That bluff has been sheared off to where it is a straight drop to the ground, which is about 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's pavement versus a bunch of sticker bushes that would have broken your fall, although it would have been painful, still would have broken your fall. Now it is pavement,
Okay.
which will not break anybody's fall other than their neck. Do we need to maybe think about putting a fence up there above that bluff, or just something to think about?
Okay.
Put on your list. And then when he put the road up there, he built a cement retaining wall so that he can make a nice driveway going up there. And there was a kind of there was a small trail that went down to the park, Great Cliffs Park down there. And he put up first a retaining wall, then about 3 or 4 of those nice stacking blocks and whatnot. And then there's like 2 or 3 old beat up highway dividers sitting there that look like they should have been thrown away eons ago. So not just the aesthetics of them up there with all this new stuff there, this crumpled up concrete, but I don't know if it was put there to block the trail going down to the park,
Shouldn't
but
have been.
people are going around it now and still using the same trail, so that didn't work. But
Yeah.
these old blocks just do not fit everything else that's nice and shiny and new up there.
Okay, I'll have to look at the blocks.
Yeah. So,
Good point.
and then the new ones he's now putting in right down below my house. I noticed that the sidewalk has been marked, remove this, remove this. He's got a whole bunch that he's going to be removing to put in new sidewalks. I just noticed that he's got a lot of work to do there. I don't know when the removal process is going to be put in, but I would hate to see it be removed and then 6 months before the new ones are put in, because that sidewalk gets used a lot.
Yes, it is. But we can't control that timeline. If they take that out, then we can't control the timeline of when they take something out or put something back in. If they take it out and make it a dangerous situation, then they have to close the sidewalk until it is made safe again.
And that's exactly why I'm bringing this up.
I understand. It's unfortunate. It's not.
It's utilized a lot too.
What they're just putting in is a new driveway drops. They're not changing the frontage of that, so it's.
I think they're
It's
changing
part
the
of-
driveways, yes, so I don't know.
Yeah, they're changing the width and or locations of the
Right.
driveway accesses, and that's all. They're not doing frontage improvements, so we don't have. There's not engineering drawings for that. It's all part of their site development through planning and building. But all we can do is tell them that we don't want them to remove the concrete until they're ready to pour the new concrete.
Can't we suggest that they set up a barrier for safe passage for pedestrians?
Well, of course, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, is that they don't remove that concrete until they're ready to pour the new concrete.
Right.
And then while they're doing that work, they'll have to put up signage that indicates that the sidewalk's closed and there's work being done there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. We don't ever want them to remove something and then not put it back for months on end. And I don't think any good contractor would do that. But I will pass that along to the owner and to the contractor.
Thank you. Moving on to I haven't noticed, are the Halloween props still out here on our waterfront? The Grimm pieces, they're still, are they gonna be put back in storage or not? No, they're gonna be kept out here?
Yeah, they're gonna be put up.
Oh, okay. So that opens up storage over there then, correct? Okay. So the other piece,
What are you trying to move in there?
no, I just wonder how much storage we have over on the mill site. That's all I was getting
I
at.
was wondering what you've got up his sleeve.
So the mill site, I just wanted to bring up the fact, because I don't bring it up all the time because this is an ongoing situation, but I've been dealing with the mill site and things going on over there and whatnot, and part of that is dealing with Cascades, and my wife works for Cascades. Just wanted to make sure that it's okay with the council that I do deal with Cascades, even though it could be construed as a conflict of interest. But almost everything that I do with Cascades is a complaint, not a service. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and if anybody has any issues with that, let me know, please.
I would suggest you check with the Ethics Commission. That's all. Just check with them. See what they have to say.
I think it's a matter of me contacting with you, the council, and
I don't want to. I wouldn't want to deal with the Ethics Commission. As a president of the council, I do not want to deal with that and say,
no,
"Oh yes, we gave Keith permission to do that."
I wasn't asking you to do that.
What were you asking?
I was just asking your permission that it is okay for me to talk with them.
I would suggest that my suggestion, and I want this to be on record,
I will do that.
okay, is to contact the Ethics Commission and see if you're okay. That's the best thing you can do. That's your best insurance you can have.
So if you'll
Well,
refer, prior to
I think as far as they're our tenant though, aren't they?
the issue of ethics is a question that we had asked early on with on the acquisition of the property, and I think there was a couple. Every counselor had some angle on some potential kind of
Sure.
conflict.
Small town.
Yeah, everybody's
Small
it's a
town.
big project. Everybody's kind of close to it, so we posed that in a question to the ethics commission, got an opinion back, and it was pretty. Wasn't a whole lot of concerns really at the acquisition of the veneer property.
Right.
It didn't extend over to the. I think it did actually. I can pull it up and see what it says, but I think it was to the white paper as well.
But I will not do anything, I will not vote on any contracts with them. So, as far as making decisions, I'm just working through the council.
You're over there trying to figure out layout and what's going on, right? The whole property as a whole. That
Right.
We're talking about the general.
Yes.
Okay. So John, you'll check on the
I'll dust off the letter that we already
Sure.
have, and then
Okay.
see if there's new questions to ask.
The only concern that I have is it's not specific to Keith and not specific to white paper, but I don't think any counselor should be acting on their own behalf without John's knowledge or the rest of the council's knowledge. I wouldn't go act on behalf of the city somewhere without taking John as a partner. And so it's like, if you're doing stuff at Cascade or doing stuff on the Boise property at any time, John should know what's going on.
Absolutely.
That's the
And he
thing.
does.
As long as John knows what's going on,
Yeah.
I think that has us covered. If you're acting on your own as some rogue whatever, that's a problem. But if John knows what you're working on,
Totally
I don't
agree
have
with
a
you.
problem with it.
Totally agree. Yep.
If John's a partner to it, then that's fine. But
Because we're not always all around, and we
but
only
then
meet
we
twice
know
a
that
month.
even if you're not here, John's going to report back.
Yep.
And so then if somebody came back and said, Keith said this, John would be like, that's not what we were doing. So it kind of covers you by working as a team. That's just my thought, is if you're working together, you're not going to get hung that way.
Yeah, I'd like to see at some time get a property manager to be
Down
the
the road, definitely.
be the go-to person.
Right, because you can't
I
be
would
around all
love
the
to
time.
see that, believe me.
Yeah, you can't be around all the time and it puts you in a bad situation.
think
That's
we're
it.
in agreement.
Really?
Now,
Yeah.
till tonight, yeah, I'll save some for tonight.
Counselor Carlson?
Still working on youth council. They're busy. Anticipate that their youth council president will be here tonight to give you their update. I was going to give you their update, but I'll let
Jeremiah?
do that.
Yep.
Lots of exciting stuff. They're doing more fun stuff than we are.
You should have seen him at the Christmas slip.
Just
tips.
my
Really, that was-
opinion is that they've come into their own. They're really finding their way, and I'm really impressed with the growth that we've seen in the last 6 months. It's made a big difference. On a personal note, I was going to ask you for money, but then I talked to Matt, and he goes, "There's no problem," and it's like, I can't ask people for money. We're working, the St. Helens PTO, the middle school's never had a PTO, never had a parent organization. There's a huge support at the high school and at the grade school, but nothing at the middle school. So we just started in November. We're working on Christmas gifts for the people that are doing the backpack program for the food. So all of those middle schoolers will have a gift. I'd like to thank the bowling alley, Yo Place, Dutch Brothers, and the movie theater that all generously offered contributions to the 25 kids that are on the backpack program. We're also adopting teachers, in case nobody knows, but teachers frequently spent hundreds of dollars of their own money to buy pencils for students, paper for students that can't afford it. So we've got a wish list of all the teachers and what they need for their classrooms to kind of support them in their classrooms, to support some of these low-income kids. Unfortunately, we're on a time crunch to fill that list. I was going to put the screws to your wallet to try to get contributions so we could get that done by Friday, but I just didn't feel in good conscience that I could put it past a basket, but that's what I'm working on this week. That's all I have.
I got 20 on it.
But it's just, I mean, when we ask these teachers, they ask for mechanical pencils for their students. They ask for lined notebook paper. They didn't ask for treats for themselves. They asked for stuff to help their students. And it's like the middle school teachers as a very hard age, an emotional pressure, it's huge. It's just huge. I mean, I just got a text like my phone blew up. They had a middle schooler threaten self-harm today at school. And it's like, it's just bad. And it's like people, parents, Susan, I know mental health is a soft spot for her, that these young people, it's not, we need to help them before they get to Terry's department. And, you know, takes everybody, city leaders, parents, administrators, we all have to help. That's it. Got a big soft spot, I can't help it.
Councillor Khan?
A couple weeks ago, we received an offer from the Scappoose Community Club to donate some decorations that they were no longer using. They're like life-size candlesticks. And so I contacted John. He said, sure, we could probably use them. So we picked those up last week. So I haven't seen them yet, but it's nice of them. And I want to thank the Scappoose Community Club for their donation. I attended a meeting with Jason Lewis-Berry, Regional Solutions Director, along with John, and I don't remember who else was there. Yeah.
And me. And John.
Okay, I was thinking of the council. I knew John was. I was trying to remember which other councilor. And Keith. And he's the governor's Jobs and Economic Policy Director. And we discussed, he wanted to know what we were doing economically, and we talked to him about our industrial park projections of near waterfront property and what's happening there, Lagoon, Armstrong, and our economic issues here. It was an interesting discussion. He seemed genuinely interested, so it was a good opportunity. That was on the 14th. On the 15th, we had a little property damage issue at the library, which is now being investigated. Yep. I think the Christmas tree lighting went really well too. I didn't get to see the Christmas ships, but I heard really good things about them. And I think that our little festival is growing.
And you make a mighty fine Mrs. Claus.
It's so much fun. But you're not supposed to give it away. That's it.
Okay. Councilor President Morton.
Thanks again to the Public Works crews for getting the prep on all the holiday decorations and working throughout that. I hope there weren't any glitches with working with Public Works in facilitating the needs of everyone. But didn't hear anything. Heard nothing but good things. So thanks to our crews, appreciate it, and our leadership as well in working through that. Just got through our goal setting with Public Works Department heads and review of our evaluations and how last year went. And so we set our goals for this coming year. If the council would like, I could distribute those goals and a debriefing of the evaluation of last year to you. And hopefully that will serve as a reminder to
have your report.
To have to meet with your department heads and write something down. Right. Okay. So felt good to go through all of that and understand. I mean, Public Works is huge, And going through that, they have a huge, enormous task annually to work through. And as you know, we've had a lot of criticism from quite a few people in here about Godfrey Park outfall. It's finished.
Yay.
And it's one of the nice things. People aren't in here pounding their fists, asking why are there goats in that canyon, and what's going on with you guys. And Public Works was innovative in terms of clearing some of that brush out of there, and it was cost saving. And guess what? No accidents, right? So when we're talking about that, I don't know if Sue can tell us right now, but how much in terms of grants, and I didn't prep you for this at all, but I'm just kind of generally, what was the grant amount that we received for that outfall project that our local taxpayers did not have to pay for? Do you happen to have that? If not, well, maybe we could go over it this evening.
Yeah, specifically to the storm project, there weren't actually any grant funds towards that, but towards the overall holistic sewer and storm drain project that we've been working on for the past 9 years. We had $2 million that was an outright grant, and another $2 million that was a zero interest loan. And that was almost half of the funding for the majority of the construction of all of that work that we've been working on. So that's a pretty significant percentage of the funding that we had to put into fixing the sewers and also upgrading and extending our storm system. So
yeah, and I think that's incredible that we have a staff that chases grants and works through those.
We
issues.
always take those opportunities when they come our way. Absolutely.
Exactly, and a little bit of oversight as well. And we talked about that in terms of some work that was being done down there, accomplished. I think Neil offered some with me when I pursued it further. Some oversight issues of the contractor doing the job. The city stepped in and said, well, let's try maybe a different approach. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's true. We did. If you recall, when we were working on doing the trenchless installation of the pipe, the contractor did run into some rock, which part of the pipe hit, and they weren't able to proceed with continuing the pipe trenchlessly through there. So we had a couple different meetings with them and with the engineering firm, and everybody was suggesting all of these very, very expensive ways to continue getting that pipe in the ground. Bringing in new machinery from California and from other parts of the country that would probably easily cost over $1 million to bring the machinery up and to try it. No guarantees that these different machines that they were offering would have even worked on the situation. And Neil, hey, why don't we just dig up the dirt and attack it from above? No one ever thought of that. So that's what we did, and the project ended up, took a little bit longer, but it did end up being done successfully and within the original budget that we had established for the project, whereas if we had gone with one of these alternatives, it would have gone considerably over budget. More than likely would have gone over budget.
So in that sense, I just wanted to, I found that out, when we were going back over our goals from last year and looking at the projects and those kinds of things. And I just have kudos to give for oversight and stepping in when stepping in needed to happen.
We had some challenges.
Yeah. Yeah,
We had
good
some
work.
challenges.
Anyway, I thought for for my report, that needed to happen. I just wanted to get that out to the rest of the council that Public Works is saving a lot of money. They are frugal. They are effective. They know the city. They know the makeup of the geology of the city and what works and what doesn't work. So that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars on just on that call, if not $1 million. So it's good things happen. I didn't know about it at the time. I just found out about it in our debriefing of talking about projects. So anyway, that's my report, and thank you.
Thank you. I don't have hardly nothing to report on. I have a burning issue that I kept meaning to bring up for about a month, and I think it was when I was reading a Spotlight article that Nicole might have wrote, as a matter of fact, about the sewer for Scappoose and how they are the second lowest in Columbia County. They're second to Columbia City, who is the lowest. And I'm curious of why, when their sewer comes to our plant, that they have such low rates. And how is that fair when it's our sewer that we are passing that much of a discount on to our neighbors and not our citizens? So I'm asking you to look at the rates. I know it's wholesale. I get all that, but they're the lowest in Columbia County.
So you're referring to Columbia City, not because Scappoose has their own sewer plant.
Yes,
And
I am
okay.
referring to Columbia City. I'm not trying to be Miss Scrooge, but I'm thinking if they're the lowest in Columbia County and Scappoose was second, and now the big write-up was Scappoose is going to have to go from 65 to 85 in a 2-year or 5-year span. I want you to look that up and give me some for next council meeting.
Be happy to.
Okay, that's one thing
Mr.
that's
Mayor?
yes.
One difference too, in Scappoose,
Yeah.
they just pump their effluent to us, the liquids,
Uh-huh.
and they have, on top of their sewer bill that they get at Columbia City, they have to periodically pump their own holding tanks out. So, it's kind of a construed cost, I guess you'd say, because they're not taking into account that part of it, that they have it's like a septic system almost. They have to have it pumped out
Pumped out
periodically.
and then brought.
So that's an added cost that the homeowners have in Columbia City that St. Helens doesn't.
Yep. Okay. But I could be right. There might still be some issues there that we need to look at, maybe. So I definitely want to look at that. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, because I know I'll forget later. And have a Happy New Year, and be safe, and be with family, and enjoy. And with that, anybody else got any other business? Any do-overs? Terry?
I might have one. Oh.
Too late, Keith. We're adjourned. Oh, don't forget, we have to be back at 6.
What for?
Vacate public hearing. Public hearing. Is he gonna have?
We have an executive session?
No.